It's been days since you saw sunlight. One of the quirks of working on secret missions. It's your first time on a submarine, and the call you've been waiting for is piped through the radio. That's your cue to mount the GPS antenna on the submarine. You'll be out in the open, exposed. You climb the ladder with heavy legs, open the hatch, and it hits you. A rush of crisp, salty air. It's then you hear it, the roar of an aircraft. As your eyes adjust, it comes into focus. An anti-submarine aircraft, headed straight for you. Your heart pounds as you lock eyes with the pilot. Was a diehard Collingwood supporter and heavy metal fan cut out for this? You ask yourself, how did I get here?
Michael is a gaming enthusiast, 10-pin bowler, and lover of heavy metal music. He's also a submariner and electronics technician for the Royal Australian Navy. That's right, Michael travels by submarine. And we just got a glimpse into his mind during his intense first voyage. I'm your host, Nick Musgrove. I'm a film and TV writer, and this is How Did I Get Here, a podcast about incredible stories in the ADF. So how did Michael find himself travelling from Perth to Singapore, deep beneath the ocean's surface, at just 23 years of age? Let's find out. Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you here. I'm just looking at you, Michael. You look quite tall. How tall are you?
I'm about 6'4", yeah.
I thought submarines were meant to be cramped.
Yeah, they can be in certain parts, but they're a lot more spacious than you'd think they are.
Cast your mind back for me, Michael, to that first voyage. A significant amount of time underwater, and you're thinking to yourself, what have I got myself into here?
Yeah.
And obviously the nerves were understandably present, and also was there a little bit of extra pressure because, of course, your father had been a submariner for 35 years. Did that add to the intensity of the moment for you?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the people that I was actually working with on that first trip have actually worked with my father as well, so there was a fair bit of pressure to sort of perform up to that standard.
Now that first voyage and also your role thereafter is as an electronics technician submariner. Tell me about that role. What does that role entail?
Yeah, so a lot of the electronic systems on board, you're thinking communications, combat system, sonar, those sorts of systems, they operate with the electronics, and so when they break or they need to be maintained, we're the ones that go in there. We're all trained in how to repair them to a component level. But yeah, if it breaks, we fix it and keep the submarine operating at that level.
That absolutely blows my mind that you have to fix things underwater, presumably removed from all the resources that you might have on land. Is there some improvisation and creativity involved in how you fix things?
Absolutely.
You're like MacGyver's underwater?
There is some MacGyver's underwater, yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of resources you have underwater, so you make do with what you've got. So if you've got one bit of equipment that's working at sort of half efficiency and another that's not being used, you sort of mix them around to get one fully working system going again until you can get to the next port to fix it properly.
So you're obviously doing running repairs as required, but also monitoring the combat system. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so electronics technicians on submarines have two roles basically, the operator maintainer. So maintaining the equipment's the main job that we do, but when nothing needs to be fixed, we operate the combat system. So taking in all the information from the sensors, sonar, visual, electronic system warfare, all that information gets brought to our combat system, and we build a picture for the captain to work out what his next move is.
Got it. Does sonar make that cool pulse noise that you hear in movies?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
That's so satisfying. Now, your role, it's incredibly technical. Did you always have an interest in how things worked, the technical side of things?
That's really what drew me to this role. Was growing up, I liked to find out how things worked. So it was me pulling things apart, as much to my parents' displeasure, and then putting it all back together.
Look, if you can put them back together, I'm sure your parents were happy enough. Let's drill into specifics. What are you taking apart around the house?
When I was a child, it was TV remotes, clocks, computer games, all that sort of thing.
And you could actually make them work again and you put them back together?
Yeah, as far as I remember, yeah, they were working.
I guess you're going to know, yeah. That's fantastic.
Even still to this day, I love seeing wiring, where it goes, how it ticks, all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
And how would you describe yourself as a kid? I picture life as a submariner as requiring a very steady disposition. Was that you as a kid?
Yeah, I was pretty capable of just sort of spending time on my own. I mean, I could be outgoing, and I played team sports growing up as well, so I was sociable in that sense, but I was also happy to just sort of sit in my room and read books or play video games by myself, so yeah.
Michael, following school, you didn't consider yourself a candidate for TAFE or uni, and wondering what to do, you sat down with your father. What did he tell you?
He basically sat me down in front of the laptop, pulled up the ADF Careers website. He wasn't forcing me into it or anything. He just said, have a look and see if there's anything there that catches your eye. And there was a few roles that caught my attention, but one of them, electronics technician, stood out the most. And even my father said, that's you down to a T, like that's the one you will enjoy the most.
Must be a beautiful feeling for him to have the family tradition continue.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a running joke for me. I tell people that I've tried to take over the family business, so...
Great, well, you're doing a very good job.
Yeah.
Now, working in a submarine sounds like something that would need highly specialist training. What was involved in getting yourself skilled up enough to embark upon that first voyage?
Yeah, so all up, I think it would have been about 2 years of training to get my dolphins, so yeah.
So when you say to get your dolphins, what does that mean?
Yeah, so when you get your dolphins, that's the all clear from command to say you are safe and knowledgeable enough to work on a submarine without supervision, essentially.
I'm interested in how you could prepare yourself for a submarine without being in one. Are there simulators?
Yeah, so we do have simulators up at the school, the Submarine Training Systems Centre. We've got a combat system simulator there, so you can work on the combat system and practice your vocal drills, your operation of the system itself. And we've also got a diving simulator, essentially. It's a sort of a cabin on hydraulics, and that's where people learn how to drive the submarine.
I'm picturing a sort of video game arcade where it's the one where you step into the full capsule and it moves. Is that what you mean by hydraulics?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure it looks slightly more sophisticated, the one you were in.
A little bit more.
So is the leap from simulation to that first voyage, was that a quantum leap, or did it actually look quite similar to the way the simulators had been set up?
Quite similar. It was a little bit jagged, I guess, in terms of there was only like portions of the combat system and control room in some simulators. So the diving and driving simulator didn't have the whole right-hand side of the submarine on there. So it was all a matter of piecing it all together into one big compartment. But for training purposes and it being a replica preparing us for that, it was pretty bang on. So yeah.
So, Michael, you were going to voyage from Singapore to Perth via submarine. Do you remember the moment where you first sighted the submarine that you would be voyaging in?
Yeah, we arrived from the hotels on the bus. It was there sitting in this wharf in Singapore, and everyone's got their bags ready to sail.
How are the nerves in that moment?
Yeah, a little bit nerve-wracking at that point. This is my time to work with a proper submarine crew actually underway and upskill and show them that I'm there to work and train to be in this position.
Were you worried that it wasn't for you? What was behind your nervousness, do you think, as the voyage progressed?
Yeah, it was a little bit of like the family history, I guess, but also the pressure to sort of perform, no pun intended, under pressure, but showing people that I can do the job and try not to make any mistakes.
How did you go? Did you perform to the standard you were hoping for?
Slightly. I did make several mistakes, but that's what learning's all about. So the crew were quite accommodating and helped me work through any of the mistakes I'd made and get me to the position I'm in today.
That probably compounded the nerves at the time, though, when mistakes start happening, as they inevitably do.
Absolutely, especially at the end of the day and you've got time to reflect sitting in your bed. It sort of builds up and up until they're not there anymore.
I was going to say it could be a long, dark night, but it's possibly not light nor dark, more of a constant light throughout.
Just depends on which part of the submarine you're in.
Talk me through a dive. I'm fascinated. I've seen movies, obviously, which may or may not be completely fictitious. What happens during a submarine dive?
Yeah, so we test a lot of the systems to make sure that we're good to go underwater. And then what happens is we fill up the ballast tanks with water, remove the air, and that's when the submarine starts to proceed underwater. And once we get to a certain depth, we make sure all the air's out, test all the systems again, make sure we're good to go, and then keep travelling underwater from there.
If there is still air you need to get rid of, what happens?
So we do what we call is swinging the bubble, and so that's just us changing depths with a bit of angle, and then that sort of relieves all the air that's trapped underneath the carbon fibre casing that's underneath or around the submarine.
A great scene in several movies is that magic moment where the higher ups are on the bridge of the submarine just before it dives, and there's one person who, in a very cavalier way, closes the hatch just before the water hits it. Is that what it's like when you dive?
Not so much to the point where the water's just about to hit the hatch, but yeah, when we're diving the submarine, we take a bit of time to remove a lot of the equipment to get it down beneath the pressure hull, and then the last two people up there is usually the officer of the watch and the lookout, and they'll both come down, shut the hatches along the way, and make sure they report to the control room to make sure everyone's safe and inside.
And do you feel a lot of force when you dive, or is it more like when you're in a plane where you can't actually sense how fast you're going?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird, the sensation. Like when you're on the surface and you're rocking around, that's when you sort of know you're at sea away from land. But as soon as you dive, if you're not moving in different angles or certain speeds, it sort of just feels like you're sitting still. As soon as the submarine dived, that's all you know for the next couple of days, and you're just thinking, there's no way out of this right now until you get to the next spot.
Okay, so returning now to the moment at the start of the episode. It's time to resurface, and you, Michael, had a very specific role to undertake. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as the trainee electronics technician, when the submarine's getting ready to surface, we have to make sure all the equipment that we're taking up to the bridge is there ready to go and carry it up there as soon as we can. And that includes the GPS antenna, the bridge seat, large compass called the Polaris, and any life-saving equipment as well.
So these are things that you demount from the bridge before you dive, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
And when you resurface, they're the first things that you remount?
Yep.
Are they heavy?
Yeah, some of them are really heavy.
Are you climbing a ladder whilst holding these things?
Yeah, well, you do in some points, but there's also people around to assist you bringing them up as well. So there's two hatches you have to climb through. So you climb up through the first one. Someone will usually pass something from the bottom up to you into that middle part, and then you sort of hold it there, transition through the hatches, and then pass it back up to the next level. So it's a little bit of pass the parcel.
And I'm fascinated that you've spent such a significant amount of time underwater. When you get through that first hatch, do you get a sense of the elements outside yet, or is it not until we open the second one?
Usually the second one, that's when you'd start hearing sort of the waves crashing around you. If it's pretty rough or windy, you'd hear the sea spray sort of coming into the bridge as well.
So that day of your first voyage, when you've arrived near the shores of Perth, what do you see and what do you feel when you open that second hatch out into the surface?
Opening that second hatch, you definitely get the fresh air feeling, the breeze. You can definitely taste and smell the salt in the air, and it's just sort of refreshing after several days underwater.
Was that an amazing moment for you when you were exposed to the elements all at once like that? Is that a vivid memory for you?
It was definitely a turning point, I think, in terms of I've made it. I've done the hard part. Like the first part is over, and then climbing up to the bridge, it just felt like a sense of accomplishment.
And so then you mounted the equipment, and then something quite extraordinary happened.
Yeah, so we'd just been operating with Air Force aircraft, P-3 Orion, and you could see it probably only a couple of 100 metres above us, and it was clear enough that they'd flown over and looked through the windscreen and could see the pilot and waved to them, and they waved back. So that was the moment I thought, yeah, this is the career for me.
So there's this beautiful moment of connection between you and the pilot where you both felt part of something and like you belonged?
Yeah, definitely. It's just it all tied together. Operating with them for the last couple of days, coming into Perth, and then seeing it in person, not through a computer screen.
So why is that such a significant moment in your mind, Michael, do you think?
I think it was a lot of the excitement that this career could bring for me, especially a few days prior, doubting myself a little bit. Getting to that point, I thought, yeah, I can definitely do this.
So contrast the nerves of your first voyage with what you love about it now. What are the things that you really love about being a submariner?
I love the cruise, the camaraderie amongst your teammates, especially when you're at sea. It's you and 59 other people, and these are your family away from home. You work together, you eat together, and when you pull into foreign ports or anywhere around Australia, you go out and explore together. So it's a great group of people to get to know in a very small space.
What sorts of places have you gone and seen when you've been on shore with your crew?
Singapore a handful of times. I've been to Japan, Guam, Noumea, all around Australia, and I've even done a course in Hawaii, so I spent 2 weeks over there.
Is it cold in a submarine?
It can be. The atmosphere of the submarine usually operates based on the external seawater temperature. So when you're operating around the equator, the water's a little bit warmer, so the air inside's a little bit warmer. And if you're travelling around Australia, say around the Bight, it can be a little bit chilly, so you will be rugged up sitting on your console there.
Interesting. So despite obviously the heavy insulation of the vessel, the water temperature will affect the internal temperature.
Yeah, 100%.
So describe your sleeping sort of quarters in a submarine.
It would be a cabin with 5 beds in it. I'd probably either sleep on the bottom or the top bed, and it's probably about the same length as I am tall. So laying down flat on my back, I've got maybe half an inch of headroom.
Just enough.
But plenty of room to roll over and sleep on my side if I need to.
And what about fresh water? Do you have to bring just a huge amount of fresh water on board when you're on a long voyage?
No, so the submarine actually makes its own drinking water.
Makes its own?
Yeah, so we have reverse osmosis units, UV sterilisation, ion exchange plants, all there to make drinking water for as long as we can.
And what about the food? So you got water sorted. How about the food? Talk me through the menu.
Food is some of the best I've had in the Navy, especially on a submarine. You wouldn't expect that, but we have some of the best chefs that go above and beyond. Usually it's really fresh the first couple of weeks out, and then as time goes on, you run out of fresh food, so you start getting into sort of the powdered milk and frozen goods, as we call it.
What's the best meal you've ever had on a submarine?
I think we had the chefs one time cook up the fish that we just caught fishing off of Wilson's Prom. Just had a bit of a haul, brought it down, and chefos were like, we can cook that up for everyone. Awesome. So we had some fresh fish that night. That was a pretty good meal.
So you guys were just fishing off the submarine or from the shore?
Yeah, just off the submarine. We were transiting around Australia and we had a bit of time up our sleeves. So we thought, let's stop in this beautiful little spot of the country and enjoy our time.
There must have been some bragging rights to whoever managed to haul in dinner that night.
Absolutely. Everyone was trying their hardest to catch the biggest fish.
And are there some chef's classics as well that are just sort of the go-tos?
Yeah, I think the 2 meals that help us tell what day of the week it is as well is your Burger Wednesdays. So lunchtime you get burgers, beef or chicken or veggie if you're a vegetarian. And then Saturdays is your Pizza Saturday. So Saturday night just sort of feels like you're at home again, where you get to have a slice or 2 of margarita or pepperoni pizza, and yeah.
So that's actually a way of marking time for you underwater. So is that part of a broader strategy to help submariners know when day is and know when night is and know what day it is?
Yeah, especially in that 6 hours on, 6 hours off rotation, you can lose track of time pretty easily. So we do definitely use the meals to tell us what day of the week it is.
I know that you're a bit of a fan of heavy metal.
Yeah.
Are you listening to that in your downtime as well, underwater?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my noise-cancelling headphones, so I'm not disturbing anyone else with it. And, just sort of find myself a nice little spot to sit in and crank out some tunes.
What about exercise, Michael? Are you getting much incidental exercise whilst you're on the submarine, or do you need to actually commit to a fitness regime?
I think if you commit to a fitness regime, it's better for you. There's not a lot of distance between where you sleep and where you work. You probably walk about 30 to 40 metres a day if you're just going from your bed to your station. But we do have a little bit of space on board where you can conduct fitness. So a lot of people do body weight exercises, so think push-ups, sit-ups, squats, that sort of thing. But in the torpedo space, that's where we have usually a spin bike and some adjustable dumbbells where you can work out properly.
Is that where also the people have to sleep?
Yeah. If you're sleeping closer to the tube space than the back of the compartment, you'll usually hear someone huffing and puffing away on the spin bike.
And so that's exercise. What about sort of recreation and relaxation? Is there time for those things?
Yeah, so not so much strange work lifestyle we have on board. It's 2-watch system. So we work 6 hours on, 6 hours off. In that 6 hours off, you've got to fit in a meal. If you want to have a shower or clean yourself up, that takes up that 6 hours as well. And then if you're not going to sleep, you've got the option to watch TV. We've got PlayStations on board, so a lot of people play FIFA. We usually have a couple of FIFA tournaments going on, or reading books.
I'm really interested that there's gaming going on underwater in crew members' downtime. That's fantastic. Does it get competitive?
Yeah, usually there's a whole table of like a draw card system. So someone's playing this person. There's a ladder, and if you want to challenge the champ, you can take on the champ.
And there's, I presume, not a lot of places you can spend your money when you're underwater, given there's no Wi-Fi and no shops. Is that actually quite a great way of sort of saving, almost in a compulsory way?
Yeah, there's been a lot of people that have been forced to save money essentially because there's, like you said, nowhere to spend the money on board. And when you come back alongside after however long you've been gone for, you usually have a nice little nest egg there sitting for whatever you want to buy. Some people have bought cars. I know someone that's bought a pinball machine and a suit of armour just to have in his house. So, I mean, that's the joys of being forced to save money.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. In terms of really picturing life aboard a submarine, are there movies you would recommend to us and to the listeners that help you picture it in an accurate way?
So most accurately, I say this to everyone, if you want to know what life on an Australian submarine is, it's definitely got to be down periscope. It's got that classic mix of, I guess, horseplay with the crew, having a bit of fun, but also getting the job done when the going gets tough. So it's a good mix.
Michael, let's talk the life aquatic. What does it sound like in a submarine?
The noises outside of the submarine while we're at sea. You get a lot of what we call biologics, usually during the morning and the afternoon. So in the mornings, we have the morning chorus, and in the afternoons, we have the evening chorus. And during those phases, you would hear whale songs, dolphins clicking, snapping shrimp, all those sorts of things that are really loud in the water, but sound really nice.
Can you start to tell the differences in certain animals? You can tell a dolphin click and know, oh, I think that's a dolphin.
Yeah, you can definitely, especially like whale songs, that's its own sound. You can definitely tell that apart. And the snapping shrimp is a really interesting sound as well. It's like a lot of clicks. It's almost like, I guess, like the predator sound.
It's quite amazing. At whale call, I mean, people stream whale calls to go to sleep, but you've got it naturally.
Yep, absolutely. It's pretty lucky.
Your role is so technical. What do you end up with in terms of qualifications?
So as your career progresses, you gain more qualifications along with promotions and such. So when you finish your initial training, you'll end up with a Cert 3 in electronics and communications engineering. From there, you'll get a Certificate 4. And if you get to the senior sailor level, you start getting a diploma, and you can look at advanced diplomas from there as well.
And they're obviously transferable to other walks of life as well?
Yeah, all these qualifications are nationally accredited. So if you get to a point where you want to walk away from defence with these qualifications, you can take them anywhere and they will be accepted.
Michael, it's been 15 incredible years since you embarked upon your career in the ADF. Looking back to your childhood, what words of wisdom would you give to your younger self?
Join earlier. I signed up when I was 19, but if I could go back and start the application process fresh out of high school and not sort of squandered a year not looking at this as a career opportunity, I should have done that 100%.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening. To learn more about careers in the ADF, head to the link in the episode description and join us again soon for more incredible stories on How Did I Get Here?